The rain poured relentlessly over downtown Seattle, transforming the usually vibrant streets into glistening rivers of reflection. Jake Harmon had been working at the Silver Spoon for nearly 3 years now. The upscale restaurant had become something of a local hotspot, attracting tech entrepreneurs and the occasional celebrity passing through the Emerald City. This particular Tuesday evening started like any other for Jake. The dinner rush was just beginning to wind down, and he had been on his feet for nearly 8 hours straight. His patience was wearing thin, especially after dealing with a particularly demanding table of corporate executives who had left him a measly 5% tip despite running up a $600 bill. The same table had sent back a perfectly cooked ribeye twice, claiming it wasn't prepared to their liking, and Jake had to witness Chef Marco's silent fury in the kitchen. Just hours earlier, Jake had received a text from his landlord threatening eviction if he was late on rent again. His car's transmission was failing, and the estimate for repairs had been astronomical. Every dollar counted now, which was precisely why he'd picked up a double shift despite battling a throbbing migraine since noon. When the door swung open at 9:45 p.m., 15 minutes before closing, Jake couldn't hide his annoyance. The hostess had already gone home, leaving him to handle any last-minute guests. Through the entrance stumbled a disheveled man, drenched from the downpour outside. His long, dark hair was plastered to his face, and a scruffy beard covered most of his features. The stranger wore a worn leather jacket over a plain black t-shirt, faded jeans, and muddy boots that left wet marks on the polished hardwood floor. A vintage motorcycle helmet dangled from his hand, water dripping onto the welcome mat. Jake immediately tensed. The restaurant had a strict dress code, and this man clearly violated every aspect of it. Moreover, the last thing Jake wanted was to reset a table and potentially stay an hour past his shift for someone who looked like they might order the cheapest item on the menu and nurse a single glass of water. The man quietly made his way to the bar area, his eyes scanning the nearly empty restaurant. As he moved, he seemed to favor his right leg slightly, a subtle limp that would be imperceptible to most. Jake intercepted him before he could sit down, plastering on his most insincere smile. The server quickly informed the stranger that they were no longer seating guests and suggested a casual diner a few blocks away that stayed open until midnight. When the man gently protested, mentioning he just wanted a quiet place to have a quick meal, Jake became more insistent. What Jake failed to notice were the subtle glances from the few remaining patrons who seemed to recognize something familiar about the rain-soaked stranger. One woman at table 7 nearly choked on her wine when she spotted him. Another man by the window frantically typed something on his phone, glancing up repeatedly with growing excitement. At the bar, the bartender, Samantha, was staring with her mouth slightly agape, a cocktail shaker frozen mid-shake in her hands. One woman even discreetly took out her phone, but thought better of it and put it away, respecting the man's apparent desire for privacy. The mysterious man didn't argue further. With a slight nod and what appeared to be a resigned half-smile, he turned and headed back into the stormy night. Through the window, Jake watched him pause under the awning of the building across the street, pull out a worn leather wallet, and count what little cash he had before tucking it away and disappearing into the shadows. As Jake turned back to finish closing, he noticed a small, worn silver coin on the floor where the stranger had stood, a collector's item from the movie John Wick that had fallen unnoticed from the man's pocket. It wasn't until the following morning that Jake's roommate, Tyler, an aspiring filmmaker and pop culture enthusiast, burst into his room, practically vibrating with excitement. Tyler shoved his phone in Jake's face, showing social media posts exploding across every platform about Keanu Reeves being in Seattle. Apparently, the actor was not only scouting locations for his next film, but had also just made a substantial anonymous donation to the Seattle Children's Hospital the previous day. The hospital staff had only recognized him because he had stayed for hours, visiting with children in the oncology ward, reading stories and signing autographs. Tyler showed Jake several photos of the actor walking around Pike Place Market earlier that day, wearing the exact same leather jacket, black t-shirt, and jeans. There was even a blurry photo someone had surreptitiously taken of him, leaving what appeared to be the Silver Spoons block, clutching his helmet in the pouring rain. The timestamp matched exactly when Jake had turned the man away. The color drained from Jake's face as realization dawned on him. The soggy, humble man he had unceremoniously turned away wasn't just any random customer looking for shelter from the rain. It was one of Hollywood's most beloved actors, known as much for his kindness and humility as for his iconic roles. What made the situation even more mortifying was that The Matrix had been Jake's favorite movie growing up. He had watched it countless times, even writing a college essay about its philosophical implications. His desktop background was still a scene from the film, and he had a collection of memorabilia hidden in his closet, including a rare poster signed by the entire cast, minus Keanu himself, the autograph he had always hoped to someday obtain. The story spread quickly among the restaurant staff after Jake reluctantly confessed during the pre-shift meeting. The owner, Melissa Richardson, was horrified when she heard about the incident. The Silver Spoon had prided itself on celebrity sightings and the positive publicity they brought. Now, instead of potentially appearing on Keanu's social media or in an interview about Seattle's culinary scene, the restaurant might become known as the place that rejected one of the most down-to-earth stars in Hollywood. To Jake's horror, a security camera outside the restaurant had captured the entire interaction, and somehow the footage had leaked online. The 15-second clip showed Jake's dismissive gesture and Keanu's humble retreat into the rain. The video went viral within hours, amassing millions of views and thousands of outraged comments. Keanu Deserves Better began trending on Twitter, with fans expressing their disappointment in Jake and the establishment. Jake's co-workers didn't let him forget his blunder. For weeks afterward, they left Matrix quotes in the staff room and taped pictures of Keanu to his locker. Some even took to calling him the gatekeeper, as a not-so-subtle jab at his overzealous enforcement of the restaurant's policies. When customers requested Jake as their server, they often asked if he recognized them with barely concealed smirks. The ultimate irony came a month later when a local magazine published a feature on celebrities' experiences in Seattle. In a small sidebar, Keanu mentioned being turned away from a restaurant near closing time. Rather than naming the establishment or expressing any bitterness, he simply remarked that he understood how hard the service industry could be and that he held no grudges. He even added that the experience reminded him to always be mindful of others' circumstances. A response so characteristically gracious that it only magnified Jake's shame. What the article didn't mention was that Keanu had purchased the building next to the Silver Spoon to open a community center for underprivileged youth, ensuring that Jake would have a daily reminder of his fateful decision for years to come. Jake eventually sent an apology letter to Keanu's management team, along with his prized Matrix collection, though he never learned if the actor received it. He did, however, make a personal vow never to judge customers by their appearance again. And whenever a bedraggled guest would arrive near closing time, Jake would remember the night he turned away John Wick himself and offer them the best table in the house with a genuine smile. The coin from John Wick now hung on a small chain around Jake's neck, a constant reminder that sometimes the most important people enter our lives in the most unassuming ways, and that kindness should never be reserved only for those we deem worthy at first glance.